Hello there and welcome. So today, temperature's about 19 degrees and it's lovely and sunny in East Kent, although a little cloudy. It's just right for biking, so I'm making the most of it and actually getting out for a ride with a couple of friends. So I thought what I'd talk about today briefly is riding with friends, riding with other motorcycles. So it's always lovely to get out with your mates. Sometimes they're people you well know, and sometimes it's just riding with a motorcycle group, maybe people you don't know so well, but you're still enjoying riding. A nice day can always turn into a disaster when things are done incorrectly. And so it's very important that we sort of maintain our discipline, think about what's important, because just because you know your friends or just because you're part of a group doesn't mean that they're not going to cause you a problem. And I'm not going to go into all about the various systems that you can use for riding in groups, such as the buddy system. That's something completely separate. I'm more interested here today about safety. So when you're riding with your friends, just because you know them doesn't mean that there's not going to be a problem. The basic rules of when you can stop, the fact it hurts if you hit something, they all still apply. And so stopping distances are really important to maintain from your friends. Just because you know them doesn't mean you can get really close to them. And I see a lot of people when they're out riding together, they're very close to one another, you know. Creating space is still such an important part of your ride when you're riding with your mates. So one phrase that comes into mind immediately is always ride your own ride. Just because your mate can do it doesn't mean you can do it, and by the time you reach the same area of road space or you're dealing with the same hazard, things could have changed. You may not be able to use the same road position, the same speed as your friend did. Your friend may be more experienced, you may be more capable. So you've always got to do your own thing that is appropriate. It's very easy when you ride with your mates to start looking at the back of your mate and fixing on his bike or his number plate and thinking that because he's taken a certain line you can do that as well. Well, you've got to try and look well ahead up that road and treat your friend, your co-rider, like you would any other traffic when you don't know them. In that way you will be identifying hazards and reacting, hopefully, a lot sooner than you would if you were just staring at the back of the bike. So one of the pros maybe, but with cons of modern motorcycling, is that we have communication. So I've got radio communication with my friend up ahead there, and I know a lot of people use Bluetooth and chat away, and you know, when it comes to riding, it can be really helpful because you don't get lost. You can tell your friends where you've gone if you lose eye contact. You can warn people of hazards around blind bends, etc, etc. The downside of it can be that you get involved in conversations which then start to distract you from your ride, and if that starts to happen, you've got issues because of splitting your brain's attention. So as an instructor, I'm very used to chatting on the radio, and from my previous jobs I'm used to listening on the radio. Fortunately, as an instructor, the communication is one way. The students don't talk back to me, but you know, it's always a possibility. So it's like Sam's pulling a little overtake there. So we never follow our friends through on an overtake. That's an absolute no-no. See, whilst it's very easy to say ride your own ride, we often get compelled or feel that it's okay to follow our friend through on an overtake. Overtakes must only be done when it's safe for you to do it. Just because your friend did it doesn't mean you can do it. Now we've got a little system today, whereas if the lead rider gets well ahead in advance, they will wait for us. So we're not under any pressure to keep trying to chase the bike in front. We're all nice and relaxed. We know roughly the route we're taking, and we know that no one's going to abandon us or leave us behind. So just done a couple of little overtakes there on my friends. And the other thing I would say is, you know, don't overtake your friends really close. Overtake them like you would any other vehicle. We do not want to be brushing past and creating a big rush of air because you're almost brushing shoulders with your friend as you overtake. If they start to move suddenly to avoid a pothole or a damage in the road surface, you're going to collide. And I sadly do know of incidents in the past where these sort of things have happened and people have been seriously injured or worse. And you just need to create space all the time on a motorcycle, even if it's your mate. So you can see there that my mate at the front, number one, he's pulled over and waited for us. So of course bends is something, an area that causes a lot of motorcyclists a lot of issues, and when you're out riding with your friends, we do not want to be too close to our friend, because if they have a problem in the bend, we don't want to be involved in their problem. If they suddenly slow down, brake unnecessarily, panic, lose control, we want to be far enough back that we can gently protect ourselves, and if anything was to go horribly wrong, we could protect the scene. You know, worst case scenario, you do not want to be right up there with your mate on the approach or through a bend. And also, you don't want to be so close to your mate that you're intimidating them. You know, if you're a very good rider and they might be a new rider or not overly confident in bends, you don't want them feeling really uncomfortable. As they slow for the bend, you're right up their rear end, filling their mirror and making them feel a bit twitchy, so they end up going into the bend faster than they're comfortable with. It's not a very nice thing to do to your mate. You want them to feel really calm and collected and comfortable. And I know I was talking to a guy recently who had been out with some friends, and you know, they're all getting on his case saying, oh, you're too slow, you should ride much faster than you do, especially on bends. You know, you're not very quick in bends. I just think that's not a very nice way to talk to your friends or your riding partners. You know, okay, there may be issues with your riding, you may have areas for development, but what I have seen a lot over the years where I've heard of these stories is when I've assessed somebody, it turns out that the guy that thinks he's not riding fast enough is actually riding plenty fast and safe enough. It's the friends that are too fast and they're trying to encourage him to do something that actually isn't safe. We need to leave our egos at home when we go out on a motorcycle. There's no room for it on a bike. I'm not the best rider in the world, I'll never profess to be. Far from it. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy my involvement with motorcycles, and I enjoy riding with other bikes. I enjoy the whole thing. But for me, it's not all about speed and progress. So it's like with the traffic lights, I've got to be aware, does my mate at the back there get stuck on the red lights? So I'm going to be particularly careful on the mirrors. Yeah, no, he's coming through, so that's all good. So when we're dealing with roundabouts and junctions, got to make sure that we look nice and early and we don't assume that our mate will take the junction or the roundabout. A little bit of foliage growing up there. Now, is my mate going to clear the junction before I commit? Yeah, good. So now I can commit. So basically, as we come in towards these mini roundabouts or junctions, we need to make sure that our friend has cleared the junction and that we're safe. And I know that as a motorcycle instructor, I always make sure that the bike taking a junction has left the junction safely, because if it for any reason stalls or they drop it, I don't want to be involved in that incident. I want to be able to be somewhere safe where I can just remain there and then deal with the incident. If you follow your mate through a junction and there's a problem, you're both going to be involved in the trouble. So sometimes what you can do is you can ride in a sort of staggered formation like we're doing now, and that way you can be a little bit closer to your friend. who are co-rider. Quite useful sometimes in training. We'll sometimes offset ourselves so we can see and hear what's going on with the student a little bit more. Yeah, I wouldn't do it at very, very high speeds. At lower speeds it's probably not too bad. And you can see, I don't know if you can see in the mirror there, my friend, he's also offset to the rear. So we've got quite a nice staggered position, which means that if my friend now brakes and I can't brake quickly enough, I've got somewhere to go past him. Same with the rider at the rear. And I've also got a reasonable visibility because he's not blocking my view of the road ahead. And as with all formations and road positions and techniques that we use, you've got to have a little bit of common sense about what's it achieving, what are the possible downsides of it. I mean, if he were to lose control of his bike and drop it on the floor, I'd still have pretty much nowhere to go. So of course there's always a risk involved in everything, but it's risk reduction and being aware of the risk. We know we're riding quite nice and sensibly. And whilst we sort of very often position for advantage on the road, that staggered formation reduces that advantage because you're not going to start using near side or offside positions for bends, etc. And you can see there things start to change. We just drop back and allow a bit more grace with the space. The key to it really is, though, not to intimidate your friend, not to get too close to your friend, because they need space to move around and react, and so do you. I'm just wondering if we'll get any overtakes in on any of these. They're all a bit bunched, aren't they? Yeah, you got to keep the interest because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the gaps there aren't that fabulous, and I know the views aren't fabulous actually on this road with the greenery at the moment, but I've still got to be sort of realistic to the prospect. Yeah, lead vehicle's turning left at the moment. Yeah, you're a bit further back than me. I just caught a glimpse of his indicator. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm thinking is the gap between the disco and the vehicle in the middle is pretty good at the moment. I could have done it, but bearing in mind we're running 3 up, there's no point. Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing having an overtake that's possible, and it's something else doing an overtake that's worthwhile doing, because all I'd be doing now is sitting in the gap and losing view of you two guys behind me, Exactly. So it's pointless, isn't it? And interestingly, if you look, 2 of those vehicles are now turning off left. So in a way, we would have done all of that overtake and for not much benefit at all.
Okay, you two are going too fast for me.
Oh, we did wait for you.
I know you did. And
Wow.
I wouldn't have gone any faster.
You wouldn't? No. No, you've got to be comfortable, haven't you?
You ride your own ride, even it doesn't matter who you with.
Always. Always.
I've only had my full licence since November anyway, so.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And, you know, we were in radio contact. Sam was obviously behind me, so he was seeing you in the mirrors. So we were always going to wait for you. We're never going to abandon you. You know, but it's
I
in.
don't want to slow you down too much, so that's the thing.
Doesn't matter. Then this is it. You know, you just go with the ride, and we don't want to put you under pressure. Yeah, and that's why before you go out, that's why you set the rules, isn't it? And you know, and you say, you know, if, with the radios and everything, we'll make sure we've got line of sight. If there's a junction, we won't just turn off blind, so you know you get lost. And if we're on a road on ahead other, we will wait for you, and you know, then you can just pace yourself.
You must have really opened it up at one point, and I just wasn't anticipating that.
Basically, for that section, the only way basically there was a view through.
Mm.
So if you kept your vision high, you could see all the way through the fields.
Yeah.
So you could straighten out a lot of the bends, and you could carry your speed.
Yeah.
You knew nothing was there.
We really ironed those bends out, didn't we?
Yeah.
So a lot of the speed there, we weren't doing high speeds.
No, it wasn't high speed.
But what we were doing is we were maintaining and carrying, because our positioning was allowing us just to flow through the bends.
Whereas I was slowing down and speeding up, slowing down and speeding up.
Yeah, but you know, we obviously had to slow down on occasions for bends and hazards, you know, driveways and stuff. But generally speaking, line of sight was good because of road positioning. So there
were a couple places where I did miss the position.
Yeah.
You did get further ahead in some of those places. But
yeah.
But that's time, experience, isn't it? On your side.
It is. It is, you know, and we were fortunate. There was virtually no traffic, so you know you were able to get the line of sight. It was clear, so you could carry those lovely lines through. Whereas if it had been oncoming traffic, the speeds would have been less because the positioning would have been less favourable. On grounds of safety, we couldn't have taken the advantage. But we're very fortunate with that today.
It was quite funny. I've probably got the fastest bike, but I'm going the slowest.
Well, I hope that some of the information in the video today is helpful. As I say, we're not going to cover the buddy systems and the various systems we use when riding in group rides. That's something for another day and probably well documented elsewhere. But it's just a few little considerations just to think about when you go out riding with your mates, just to keep yourself safe and don't fall into some of the traps that are very easily fallen into that could cost you quite dearly. Anyway, until next time, ride safe and take care.